What parts of yourself did you give up in order to belong? For many women, the answer to that question is more than we realize. Over time, we learn to adapt. We become who we need to be to fit in, to succeed, to keep the peace, and to meet expectations. And somewhere along the way, pieces of ourselves get left behind. Today's episode is the beginning of a new 5-part series about midlife reclamation. In this series, I'm going to talk about the process of coming back to yourself, about the process of reclaiming who you are. Midlife is the perfect time to reconnect. The perfect time to start is now. You're listening to the Midlife Plot Twist podcast, and this is episode 23. Hello, everyone. I hope the start of your week is, off to a great start. I am bursting at the seams with excitement as I help my daughter prepare for the birth of her child and my grandchild. There are about 5 weeks left until her due date, so things are becoming really real, really fast. Preparation for the birth of this little one has not just been about making sure the material necessities for the baby are taken care of, but has also been a beautiful chance for me to reflect on life and having raised my daughter, who she is now as a woman and a new mother, and thinking about who I am as I step into this new identity of bachan, which is grandma in Japanese. As you know, this podcast is all about the various transitions I'm going through in my 40s and reflections on these experiences that will hopefully, I'm actually crossing my fingers, help someone else out there, at least to know they're not alone. Whomever you are out there listening, you are not alone. I recently started a Threads account with this Midlife Plot Twist podcast profile. If you don't know what Threads is, it is like an offshoot of Instagram that's like Twitter, but it's Threads. I don't know. Anyway, you can check it out and interact with me on there if you like. I just post little thoughts, passing thoughts, different questions and things like that are randomly coming up in my mind. I'm just finding my wings, so to speak, on that platform, so I'm not yet sure if I'm going to keep it, but I'm giving it a shot and I've been enjoying it so far. On there, I posted a thread. I don't even know if that's what you call it yet. I don't know the lingo. But I posted that it's not too late to start something new in your 40s. And then I gave an overview of the big changes that I've been moving through and have successfully moved through in my 40s. One thing that I left out in that post, which I'll probably post about this week, is about how I've been consciously reclaiming parts of myself. As I mentioned in the introduction, this episode introduces a 5-part series on midlife reclamation. I'm going to talk about the process of reclamation because I think it is so important. And I think many of us in our 40s and 50s, I'll just say in midlife, are going through this process of reclamation or are on the cusp of it and not even realizing it. In episodes 19 and 20, I started talking about this. I started talking about the process of taking back aspects of myself that I had given away or buried. These aspects of myself were set aside or ignored, mostly because of wanting to belong, wanting to fit in, and that could be in terms of social and cultural expectations and norms, professional expectations and norms, relationship expectations and norms. You probably get the point. All of this has to do with belonging for me. I wonder how you feel about belonging. Well, I guess more directly, I wonder if you feel you belong. You can think about that in whatever context you'd like, in general, at work, with friends, in your community, and so on. I'm someone who has never felt that I belong, pretty much anywhere. And this comes from especially when I was a child. When I was younger, I thought about this in terms of fitting in, and I didn't fit in. There are many ways that I was made to see that I'm different and an outsider. At any stage of life, we can be made to feel like an outsider in terms of our social class and economic situation, in terms of our racial, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds, in terms of our language, our spirituality, our gender, our sexuality, the disabilities we might have. I am someone who's ticked off many of these boxes. Well, that sounds like I made the boxes angry. I'm someone who ticks off. No, that still doesn't work. Many of these boxes have been ticked off. I put a check mark in these boxes at various points in my life, or am just okay, God, I'm having a hard time with this idea. Anyways, I'm getting caught up in language. Yes, so I tried to be like others on many fronts. And, or at least the idea that I had in my head of who and what is acceptable and liked and that sort of thing. And so, I don't know, what does this have to do with reclamation or reclaiming parts of ourselves? Over the course of my 40s, I've been on a mission. And I want you to join me if this stuff on belonging resonates with you. Many women in midlife feel disconnected from themselves, from having sacrificed, set aside, or buried parts of themselves to be a proper or better employee, person, mother, friend, daughter, community member. I think many women in their 40s also start to feel restless or dissatisfied with something in their lives or with life in general. It's like we reach our 40s and suddenly feel like something in life doesn't quite fit anymore or just isn't cutting it the way that it used to. At one end of this spectrum of restlessness and dissatisfaction, life can start to feel humdrum, routine, beige. At the other end, life can start to feel suffocating, soulless, empty, and purposeless. For me, it was all of the above, but the thing that really hit me was like, wow, I am in midlife now, and I cannot sustain the pace that I'm going at, and I don't want to anymore. I couldn't sustain it, not physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. So first I had to realize and accept that I was in midlife because I didn't think I was, or I didn't think about it at all. And I had to start taking it seriously. It was easy for me to overlook midlife when, I'm a prof surrounded by 20-year-olds day in and day out. But realizing that I'm in midlife started to take on a certain seriousness, like the decision you have to make at a fork in the road. And I chose to go in the direction of really embracing midlife and becoming intentional about what I choose to do and what I allow into my life, very intentionally, because who knows how long I will end up living. And I don't want to arrive at the end of my life, whenever that will be, with regrets as much as possible. Now, that might sound dark or heavy, but as someone who has had to face death because of cancer in the past, I learned on a visceral level that we just don't know what life has in store for us. So let's make the best of what we have and who we are. Back to reclamation, we have things to reclaim as women in midlife because we lost parts of ourselves gradually over time through family expectations, social and cultural conditioning, people pleasing maybe, caregiving roles, and maybe a need to survive difficult situations that we've faced. Losing ourselves doesn't usually happen all at once. It happens slowly through adaptation to our relationships, our careers, our environments. I want to clarify that it's normal to adapt to our situations and environments. I'm not saying this is all bad. I think it's part of our survival instinct to adapt, obviously. I'm just advocating for us to be aware of these changes and become intentional about reclaiming things that we wish we hadn't given away. So, our moment of reclamation starts now, here in midlife. And as I said earlier, I think many of us are in this moment of reclamation and aren't recognizing it because of the hyper focus on the physical aspects of midlife that are, promoted to us about being healthy, our hormones, the amount of protein we should be getting, and the age-defying beauty tips we receive. You name it. It's out there in terms of our physical body and our appearance. It would seem that we as women in midlife are supposed to focus on preserving our youthfulness to the exclusion of developing ourselves as human beings in midlife. But the joke's on them, whoever them is. In midlife, the process of reclamation starts possibly because we do have more self-awareness by now, because of burnout after decades of responsibility and pushing ourselves, because of identity shifts, or if we have them, our children growing up. Midlife is often the first time many women stop long enough to ask themselves how they actually want to live. Reclamation is a process that allows us to remember ourselves, to reconnect with our desires, to reclaim our voice, to reclaim our choices. Reclamation is not about blowing up your life. It's about coming back into relationship with yourself. I want to give you a small example here. As a child, I grew faster than all my friends and peers in my grade and was bigger than everyone, and I was a bit chubby. I was always the last person at the top row beside the teacher in class pictures, and I was constantly called fat. I remember one year in gym class, we had to be assessed by running 50-meter sprints. Out of the kids in my class, I came in first in time. And the girls, who were the ones who were known to be the athletic ones in my class, couldn't believe it and bullied me harder because I had beaten them. I consciously decided in that moment to not try in gym class anymore because I would be humiliated because of it. I decided to fade into the background and barely participate. In midlife, I've reclaimed my body's strength through martial arts, lifting weights at the gym, and trying out any and every physical activity that my body craves. In my training, I've been told by coaches that I am naturally athletic. I say this not to brag, but to express the remorse that I felt over realizing that I could have discovered so much about myself while growing up had I not put this part of me aside. But the good news is now in midlife, I get to discover it all for myself, and it is thrilling. So as I said, this is the introduction, the first episode in a short series of 5 parts on midlife reclamation. Over the next 5 episodes, we are going to explore what it really means to reclaim yourself. In preparation for that, I want to leave you today with one question. And that is, what parts of yourself might be waiting to be reclaimed? And with that, I will say that's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, please follow the show on whatever platform you're using to listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Podbean or wherever. Also, come and find me on my new account on Threads. It's under the same handle as everywhere, Midlife Plot Twist Podcast. Come follow me on Instagram. The account is at Midlife Plot Twist Podcast. And if you'd like, you can always email me. My email is midlifeplottwistpodcast@gmail.com. Until next week, be well.